Hey, what's up, people? All right, audio looks like it's working. Let's make sure it's working from the correct capture this time, because last time we had some serious audio struggles. All right, Onyx split channels. I'm going to specify it. Hopefully we're good. All right, y'all, I'm sensitive about the audio, so please let me know if we are not doing good with that today. So, welcome back. Oh, freaky audio? You're kidding, really? Please tell me that's not true. Hey, Susanna. Hey, Dustin. Hey, Tanmay. All right, I don't want to lose the half of the first 15. Like an echo. Are you kidding me? Oh, wait, hold on. It's doubled. Hold on. Why is it doubled? Okay. Somehow, in our fighting through the audio last time, I had the audio input was in there twice. So now, okay, so this is what it should be like. Does this sound good? Okay, yes, okay, normal. Jeez. One of these days, there will be no audio problems. Sunday. Okay, cool. So here is what we are doing today. Let's switch over to our full sharing. Blah, blah, blah. Here we go. So let's see, let me double check the audio on this one to make sure it's set to the correct one as well. Onyx split channels. Okay, cool. So hopefully this is good. Hopefully it all sounds good. So what we're doing is we're working on Onramp. And if anybody has never worked with us on Onramp before, Onramp is a tool to make it as easy as possible for you to become a paid Laravel developer as quickly as possible. So one of the things we've been doing is right now, if somebody wants to suggest content, because content, let's do, actually we're going to do a migrate fresh seed. I wonder if that capital F is going to break things. Nope. Great. All right. Take two. So all the data here is basically organized modules of things you're going to learn. And what we want to do is make it as easy as possible for people to be able to suggest other resources that you might want to learn from. Right now, people do that through GitHub, and so the GitHub issues are very overwhelming. And also, it's not going to make nearly as much sense once all the content lives in the database for this all to be in here. So the goal that we're doing right now, we moved everything into Nova last time, and we introduced the concept of a suggested resource. And a suggested resource is basically what happens when somebody from the public says, I want you to add, for example, let's see, I want you to add a resource under basic terminal git, and it's this one blog post. So they want to add something here. So they're going to come into a suggested resource, and they're going to say, I want you to suggest this resource. So one of the things we could allow them to do is, as someone who has only access to those things, they can literally just come in and just see their own suggested resources, and that's it. So that's probably what we'll build first. But the goal is for us to, for the sake of making it a really nice user experience, but also because it's kind of fun to be able to talk. Like I think a lot of people want to learn about Nova. It's like, what does it look like to create a custom tool? Now, I have not created a custom tool in Nova since, let's see when. I don't even know. These ones were a year ago. So it's probably been a year ago since I built a custom tool. Now, I've worked on other people's custom tools, and I've guided other people in creating custom tools at Titan, but I have not, from scratch, built my own custom tool in Nova in about a year. So I'm going to screw it up, and y'all will probably know better than me. And, that's the fun of this, right? So first thing we want to do is make it so that a non-admin user can add a resource. So I believe we wrote tests around that last time. Hey, Drummond. Hey, Bowers Bros. I think we did suggested resource access test. And all right, so what we're missing here is users can suggest resources, right? And that's users as differentiated from admins. So function users can suggest resources. And it's really kind of create suggested resources, but I like the more fluent way of thinking of writing it. So. Thank you for subscribing, Lewis. Oh, why didn't I hear the noise for that? Oh, because my headphones are plugged in. Thanks for subscribing, Louis. Sorry for the off topic. Just managed to log into Twitch. The starting music is something I bought. So I unfortunately can't remember the name of it. I'll try and look it up a little bit later. But it's just something I bought from a composer. All right, so we want to create a user, and we want to figure out, we want to basically assert, oh, wrong keyboard layer. Assert true user, thanks for following Kilix06. User can, I think it's create, and then the interesting thing is, how do you pass a suggested resource in when it hasn't been created yet? Thanks for following Bowers Bros. So right now I'm gonna say that pass the class name in, but I can't remember whether that's right. I don't know if we need a new one up or what. So we're gonna say user can create a suggested resource. And I'm not 100% sure if that's the way we're supposed to do it or if we're supposed to pass an instance in. So let's just try this right now. And oh, what just happened there? All right, failed to assert false is true. So the question is that because we have not written that in our policy or what? So again, remember what we're doing here is we're trying to make it sure so that a user, not an admin, can suggest a policy. So let's look at the, oh, it's because we haven't done it yet. So everybody should be able to suggest resources. So we want to make this create policy method true so that users can suggest resources. Let's see if that fixed it. All right, so that's a step, but I want to make sure that we're not testing the wrong thing here. How's Laravel development with VS Code? I still use PHP Storm every day. It's good. I only switched to to VS Code about a week ago, so it's I'm slower in it than I was in Sublime Text, but it seems to have a little bit more PHP love than Sublime Text does and less than PHP Storm does. It's way faster than PHP Storm for sure, though. Okay, so I think last time we were doing something like this where we were doing a can, we had a false positive where it was green, but then there was some other thing that was not green, and so we weren't actually testing what I thought we were testing. However, we wrote this, it was red, and then we wrote the code that satisfies it, and it's green. So I'm kind of inclined to believe that this is just good enough as it is right now. You know, let's go over here and see. What is it? Yeah, I mean, it is definitely hitting this method. Otherwise, changing this method wouldn't have triggered it. So I guess that's it. So I think that one works. So now, oh, you know what else we need to do? So here's what we could do. We can go to my user, and I always do it in the admin tool, SQL tool, but let's just do it in here. So user equals user first. Let's see if it's smart enough to pick the right class for me. Nope. Okay, so remember last time we said there was some issue where SciShell was quitting out for people. If anybody remembers what that was, let me know, because I'd like to be able to use Tinker. But for now, I will censor the screen while I pull open my SQL client, Table Plus, and we're going to open Onramp up. And you can, once I get Onramp up and running, I will show it to you again, and you can see me change my user. Okay, so we are going to change my user, Dr. Uriah Gibson, PhD, to be a user instead of an admin. Tinker without Tinkerwell, yeah, man. I mean, Tinkerwell's cool, but it's not as if it's like taken over my whole life or anything. Okay, so now that I'm logged in, I get a 403 because I can't be on that page I was on before. So what I want is for a user who logs in to see suggested resources so they can go there and suggest a resource. So we need to make a test that proves out this problem, right? Because I could just go fix it, but I want a test that proves it. So we need to write a red test. So this, users can view any suggested resources. Now that's kind of gross because that's not how our brain actually thinks about it, but the policy calls it view any. The thing that's interesting for me is anything ever going to use view any other than Nova? And I don't actually know the answer. So for now, I'm going to go literal because then, you know, later when I learn, I can maybe rewrite it, but I'm going to go literal so at least I know, well, this method name directly correlates to the thing that we're giving someone permission to do. So users can view any suggested resources. So it's the same kind of thing. We want to say user, we want to create a user with the role of user, and then we want to assert that they can view any on the suggested resource class. We're not talking about a specific suggested resource. We're just talking about suggested resources, which is why this method here for view any just takes the user. It doesn't take a resource. We're just asking, can they view the suggested resource concept? So that should fail. Okay, great. Now let's write the code. Red, green, refactor. and that doesn't need a refactor. So we're going to say everybody should be able to view the suggested resources thing in Nova, right? Boom, we're green. So now when I go over here, I should see it pop up because Nova just natively reads my policies. Let's try it out. Check it out, suggested resources. So now can I create it? Now we've already tested this, so we don't have to go write a test for this. Matt's blog on whatever, and then I should create it and it should fail. Great. Oh, what's going on here? And one of the things we said in our last stream was that I wanted to make English the default. Well, it turns out that it's not actually that possible to set a default in Nova, so I might actually ask that as a feature request later. But right now, I don't believe you can set a default. So we're going to say English and then create suggested resource. And now we got a resource. We did use this field. Somebody suggested last time using this field. This is a URL field rather than just a text field, and that gives you things like this link. Bowers Rose says, have you looked in Better PHP Unit? I have it, but I haven't been using VS Code long enough to have all those keyboard shortcuts familiar. So what Bowers Rose is saying is that if you're on this test using this Better PHP Unit thing, then you have a key binding that will automatically run this test in the terminal. You can notice that I'm a new VS Code user because I keep switching back to the terminal for things instead of using the VS Code terminal, and also because I don't remember the keyboard shortcuts for things because I just started using it. So Susanna says I would need to test it to test my test if it is testing what it means to be testing. I put a test in your test because I heard you like testing your tests. All right, so I, as an individual user, can create my suggested resource, and I can see my previous suggested resources, and I can't edit them. I think we should probably let them edit them, because what if you made a typo after you suggested it? So let's add a test, which is users can edit their own suggested resources. So you see we have users can see their own suggested resources here. So we're just going to make a minor change to it. And instead of see, it's going to be edit. And then the test is now going to test against this. And control tick will bring terminal up in VS Code. Well, that's not working. But I think it's because my keyboard. So I have a keyboard that doesn't have the control tick in the same way that you all are used to. Oh, control. Ew, control requires me to take my hand off my mouse. So anything that requires control, I'm gonna have to rebind later. So I'm not a big fan of that, but thank you, Draman. Okay, so does it go away when I do this? Yeah, cool. All right, that's nice. Okay, so this is the one we're doing right here. So there's apparently a Better PHP Unit that is probably not with the key binding Command K and Command R. And I don't really feel like figuring out what it is right now, even though I'm sure it'd be much easier. So we're just going to do this. Equals this. Users can edit their own suggested resources. See, this is every time I've paired with somebody who's using this, I don't like it because I'm like scrolling up like crazy. But if I do this enough to see it, then it's blocking my IDE. So that's why I just kind of tab over instead. So I'm just going to keep doing that until I get a better workflow. All right, so PHP unit filter equals this. We are getting red because we haven't programmed this thing yet. So let's allow it so they can edit their own suggested resources. And if we see C here, we also will want to do the same thing for cannot edit other users' suggested resources. You might ask the question of, well, if they can't see them, how could they edit them? And well, people are sneaky. So, all right, so let's make it so that I can update. So what we want to do here is, yeah, Philip Backrow, command backtick would definitely make more sense for me. So how do we know whether the user can edit the suggested resource? Well, the suggested resource has the user ID on it. And so what we can do is just check those two. So we'll just basically check, is the user ID the same as the suggested resource user ID? And if it is, then yes, and if it isn't, then no. So that should fix this one. Oh, just kidding. All right, what did I do wrong? Now, sometimes this is going to fail because triple equals doesn't always perform the same way because of casts. So what we would have to do, let's actually just check that out, because basically what it's going to say is they're the same, but since you did triple equals, this one is an integer and this one's a string that happens to contain an integer. So if that is the problem, the solution there is to do casts equals, and then you do basically user ID is an integer. And then now it's going to actually triple equals the same. But that wasn't the problem. So let's go take a look at what they both are. Hold on, let's just step back for a second. I think I did update and I should have done it. Oh, see, I did edit and I should have done update. Update, oops. That's why. Edit isn't even a thing. Oh, sorry, mouse. To set up suggested resource user is user. Yeah, so that does the same thing. If we were to do that, the thing is, if you compare against things like this, then Eloquent doesn't have to load the full user in order to do it. So if we were to do return suggested resource user is user, then we are now, thanks for following Synonym. Oh, I love it. This user now has to be fully loaded by Eloquent, which means we're doing a bigger database query because we're now looking up an additional database query. And then it also has to be newed up in Eloquent, which means we're using up memory. Whereas here, we already have this resource, and we're just comparing fields in them. So it's a less costly comparison. Am I the guy from the 15-minute podcast that always runs 2 hours? No, but I'm close. I am the guy from the 5-minute podcast that always runs 10 minutes. So close, but not the same guy. +1 for drama suggestion. Which suggestion? Oh, yeah. So I just mentioned why I don't want to use that suggestion because it's more costly with no actual benefit. So it's a little bit more expressive to say suggested resource user is user, but you're using more memory and more database queries for no really notable benefit. But thank you. That's a good question on that one. All right. So now that we changed it from edit to update, it works fine. So then remember, I just wrote another new test, which is users cannot edit other users' suggested resources. So let's test that one as well. Oop. Thanks for following Zshaned. All right, cool. So I think we should be good on all these. It doesn't have to load the user, but now you're comparing relationship columns, which makes renaming those calls to more different later. Yeah, but it does have to load the user because if you are on a suggested resource, so the cost that Fatboy XPC is mentioning here is what happens if later you want to rename this relationship field, user ID, to be something else. Well, it'll fix your relationship and suggested resource thing, but then it will break this policy. So doing it with the suggestion Drama's making there is more flexible for the future if I plan to rename this thing. However, I don't. But more importantly, if you do suggested resource user like that, so thanks for following I only wear Lacoste. If you do suggested resource user, it then runs this method, it parses through this whole thing, it goes and does a select for the user with that appropriate user ID, and then instantiates an Eloquent object for that user. This doesn't do that. Nice to see someone stream Laravel development. Sweet. So this is cheaper than this is. And cheaper is not always better, but I don't plan to ever change that thing. And so granted, you can just say, well, you're not looking forward to the future. Okay, that's fine. I can find that I'm wrong later, and then we'll just rewrite this. And the good thing about this is there are tests on this, right? So if we were to one day, for some reason, rename this thing, which I don't think will ever happen, the test would fail, and we would go notice and say, oh, Matt was so dumb. If only he had listened to Fatboy XPC and Drummond. And I'm not saying you guys are wrong. It's just this is how I approach these questions. So everything's always a balance, right? All right, so our tests succeeded. So let's do a commit on that. What did we just do? We updated suggested resource policy to allow users to view any and edit their own suggested resources. Okay, cool. Sorry, for those who are new, GAC, I should remember to do it, but is git add everything and then git commit with that message. All right, and then let's also go over to Notion and note that down real quick. What have we done so far? We built out more access tests and rules for suggested resources. And then we updated suggested resource, well, I guess tests. And then the rules are we updated suggested resource policy to allow non-admins to view in Nova and to edit their own. Okay, cool. So now I come back and I see an edit thing because it's mine. Great. And then I say, oh, Matt's blog on whatever. I love adding exclamation points. Great. So, hey, Jonas. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to come in here, and while we have a test for it, sometimes I'd like to double check things. Thanks for following, Beck Clemelson. Yeah, it does suck that -am doesn't add untracked files. That's why I ended up, so GAC is basically git add blop, and then git commit -m. So you end up getting the untracked files that way. That's why I have it as a shortcut. All right, so let's factory a user. Oh, does anybody look into that Tinker error that we ran into last time? So frustrating. Yeah, if anybody remembers what the fix on that was, please let me know. People told me in the stream and I didn't have a time to get to it, and then I closed the stream and I lost it. Okay, so let's create a user manually, like the olden days. Okay, so Bob, we're now going to make it so that Bob created the suggested resource instead of Matt. So now Matt should log into Nova and not see it. All right, so we're missing something here. So in php.ini set pcre.jit to 0. Thanks for following, Zool. Yeah, so that was the one that was the fix, but then they said that shouldn't be the fix. The better fix is blah, 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 blah. Do you remember that? Where this is like the hacky fix for SciShell. But then they were like, but that's not actually the fix we want. The better fix is blah, 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 blah. What was the better fix? Maybe just upgrading PHP to 7.3.11? Look, just upgraded to PHP 7.3.11. So I don't know what this error is here. In SciShell. Oh, yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, so they recommend doing that, but then it turns out that the fix is actually not to set this, but rather to upgrade to 7.3.11. So we'll add that as a thing Matt needs to do next time. Upgrade Matt's computers to PHP 7.3.11. So Tinker works again. But thank you, What Letters and Philippe Ecro for looking this up for me. So Tinker works again. No worries, Zool. All right, cool. So what we're seeing here is that Bob created this one, but I'm logged in as Matt, and I don't want to see this. So let's write a test for that. Now, here's the harder problem, though. Thanks to me, yeah, Notion is great. We use Slab at work because there's a couple things it offers that Notion doesn't, but for personal stuff, I love Notion. Yeah, brew upgrade PHP is an opportunity for something to break and then the whole stream to die. So we're not going to do that right now. So most of the time it works, but not all the time, and I'm not going to test that right now. Okay, so ooh, this is just randomly moving on me. Okay, all right. So we want to make it so they can't see this. So this is the hard part. This is not a policy that makes you not see this. This is an update to the Nova query for this resource. And that is something that is a lot harder to test, and I've never tested before. So, well, no, that's not true. I have tested before. I don't remember how I tested it. So let's go to our suggested resource, and basically there's a method that you can do on the, thanks for following, Lakasara, and the Nova suggested resource. And there's a method here. Why is that airing out? Okay, that's fine. Thanks for following again, Lakasara. I'm not really sure why it's making more noises on me. Oh, thanks for following Christian Ali Curry Martinez. Hold on just a second, y'all. I try to turn off all of my alerts and alarms before these, but my calendar app does not like to listen to the do not disturb. Okay, cool. We are back and ready to go. All right, so there's a method in here that defines what eloquent query it is making to pull all the things here. And this is the one space where you don't just get the luxury of setting a policy. You actually also have to modify that. So I think the name is something like index query, but I can't remember for sure. So, oh, there you go, index query. Look at that. So when you want to change the query that it uses for that, you're just basically gonna come in here and have your own index query. So this right here says, oh, sorry, so actually we need to use that Nova request again. I just deleted. Okay, so we need to modify it where, and so this is what we want to do is scope it to the ones that this person has access to. So let's do this without breaking things. So we want to modify it, but we need to modify it based on the current user, because admin users are going to need to have a different experience here. So my guess is we're going to want to run a test on this, although I've never done that before, so that's going to be, I just said I've never done it before, and then I just said I have. I can't remember if I have. This feels a little familiar and a little unfamiliar. Okay, so what we want to do is if request user role is admin, do one thing, otherwise return this thing. So what is this thing here going to be? And we do have to ask the question if this is true for admins or also for admins and editors. My guess is this is admins and editors. So actually we're going to do this. Is at least editor, I think is what we named that one. And so this one is going to say, okay, cool. So you're not an editor, you're not an admin. Now we need to know, is this yours? So we want to say query where the user ID is equivalent to the request user. Can you do this? I don't know if you can do that. Let's just try that. All right, so first of all, let's see if it works. And then second of all, let's see if we can write a test for it. Okay, good start. Let's go make one from me this time for real mats. All right, so we can see mine, but we can't see Bob's. That's the way it should be. Now let's make me an admin and see if I can see both. Boom. Great. So that's how it should be. So now let's figure out how to test that real quick. I want to go to the suggested resource access test and see if I were to want to instantiate one of these and run the index query, how easy would that be? I'd have to new up a Nova request and then pass in a database query. The database query would be easy. The Nova request, I'm a little bit nervous about it. Can I try to change resource ID to 1 and see if you can still see it? Change the resource ID? You mean the suggested resource ID? Oh, go see if I can, yeah, good idea. So what he's saying is, I actually don't know if it's a he. What Draman is saying is go here and then now manually do this and see if it 403s. And it does. Go team. Good thing to check. Theoretically, our tests should check all these, but it doesn't hurt to double check that your tests are testing what you think they're testing. Put a test in your test and you test, like Zidane said. Thanks for following, Sir Torxy. All right, so what I want to do is test this index query. You know what I'm going to do? Forget where I've done it before and hit ye old Stack Overflow. So we want to Laravel Nova test index query. It's probably not something somebody has written about before, but it would be super cool if they had. So, nope. Okay, cool. So I'm going to spend 5 minutes or less trying to manually build a test for this thing. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to go try and find what the code is that I've done before. So the simplest way to do these things that is probably not going to actually work is you new the thing up or you get an instance of the thing from the container. So let's just try this. Is Nova something you make use of often in Titan? Yeah, we love Nova. Okay, so function users only see their own suggested resources on the index page. So I just realized something. Does it matter? I kind of think it doesn't matter. Wow, I didn't even think about that. What is the downside if somebody else can see that somebody suggested a resource? I mean, they can right now in the GitHub issues, right? It actually has an upside, which is that something doesn't get double suggested if we're falling behind. You know what? Screw that. That was actually unnecessary. Bam. Look at that. Deleting code. I think they should. Yeah, totally, Susanna. The Electrolux. I'd be interested in where you think Nova isn't a good fit. Well, Nova is an admin panel. So if you don't need an admin panel, don't use Nova. That's the number one time it's not a good fit. No worries, Susanna. The delay always does that. Okay, so they should see them. So is there anything we don't want them to see? Well, we may not necessarily want them to see, those which, the names of the people who suggested them, but they don't right now, right? It doesn't actually show you who suggested it. The problem is I kind of want you to be able to see it if you're the admin, and conditionally showing and hiding fields based on whether or not an admin, I don't know if it's actually that easy. One thing I do want them to do, however, is to be able to filter it down. And one of the things I promised on the tweet about this was that I was going to build a custom tool, and we haven't gotten there yet. Let's start by building a custom filter, and then if we have time, we'll get started in the custom tool, because that is what I said we were going to do. Okay, first of all, what do? Thanks for following, Miguel Canguero. We didn't do anything. We added some things and then deleted them. We're back to where we started. Okay, cool. So what we want to do now is make a filter. Okay, cool. So I've made one of those, but again, it's been a while. So let's look at the docs for making filters. All right, defining filters. All right, ours is a Nova filter, and it's going to be called suggested resource owner, maybe? Is there some admin panel you wouldn't do in Nova? Too custom, lack a few specific things, versatile. I mean, I haven't yet run into something where and if we get to it, like Nova allows you to build custom tools in Vue, and so I would say if you have an entire backend application that you're building that doesn't have any of the things that Nova offers, for example, you don't have any CRUD pages, you don't have any of this stuff, then sure, building your own custom tools in your own custom built Laravel app is faster than Nova, right? Because if you build a custom Nova tool, you have to build your custom code within Nova's framework of thinking. Whereas if you build your own app that just happens to act like an admin panel, you build it with your own framework of thinking. So building custom tools on your own will always be easier than building custom tools in a framework like Nova. That said, if, like most apps, you have some custom tools and also a whole bunch of CRUD, then that's the point where I think that Nova is probably still going to be a better fit for you. But the balance between the two is something that you have to figure out on your own. Will Titan ever consider non-US time zone employees? I was going to say you can live wherever you want, but that's not actually true. The two concerns that we have about where somebody lives are, can we fly you to our on-sites and Laracons, and that both has to do with how far away you live and the cost of flights, but also visas. And then the second thing is, can you work overlap with our hours? It doesn't matter whether that's weird hours for you. I mean, it matters a little bit. Like if someone told me, yeah, I'll work 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day, I'd say no. But like if someone says, oh, well, I'm going to end up working 1 to 9 p.m. every day, I'd say, okay, cool, that's fine. So, all right. So what were we doing? We're making a filter. Man, it has been a long time since I've looked at filters. So what we want to do is, oh goodness, it's been quite a while. Ha! Anybody do this recently? All right, the two options are all and mine. And I don't think that's how it works. I think it's got to be like let's go here. Let's actually look at what they're teaching us here, okay? The query where type equals value. And then, okay, here you go. So your label on the left and then the value on the right. So all, we'll just do all. And then mine, we'll just do mine. And so what this is going to allow us to do is, if your value is all, then we return the query. So basically, if somebody's picked this filter and they want to see all suggested resources, we just return the query. So value equals all, then return query. Otherwise, we want to scope it down to just mine. Now, we could say if mine equals value is mine, but this is the only other option. So for right now, we're just going to do this. So here, now we're going to scope it down to only mine. So we're going to say query. I don't think you actually have to return the query, but I'm returning it here just so we can quit out. Well, actually, do they return the query or no? I guess they do. Uh-oh. Redo is different. Command Shift Z. Getting those Sublime text shortcuts. So what we want to do here is modify the query. So query where user ID equals request user ID. Okay, so we're basically saying if you hit all, show me all of them. If you hit mine, show me only mine. Okay, all's by default. You can just provide mine by. I was going to say that earlier. I think every time I do this, I remember that you don't need the all because if there's every filter by default has like an unfiltered option. So I believe that Drummond is correct, and I was thinking we were going to get there anywhere. Where really we're just going to end up with this, right? If the filter's not not selected, then that's it. You think there's a request ID? That was what I was reaching for before. Almost everything that has user on it also has an ID method. We're going to try that and just see what happens. Okay. Hey, Vince, thanks for joining. Dustin, I used to co-work in the Philippines. I worked overnight. Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. So definitely not. Okay, so available options. Okay, Boolean filters. I mean, do we want a Boolean instead? No, we don't want Boolean. Okay, cool. So how do we register that filter onto like what sort of thing it's filtering? Each select filter, 2 methods. Yep. How do we define what, or does every filter get added to everything? I don't like that. Oh no, I think we add the filter in the Nova suggested resource. I think there's a filters method here. Yes, filter method. So we want a new one up here. And then new suggested resource owner. It's either that or class. I can't remember how it works. All right, so it's newing them up. Cool. And resource add class name in the filters. I think it's not class name, but a new one is what it's looking like here. Seems like the lag is bad today. I recently changed to a higher quality stream at the recommendation of a popular streamer whose blog post I read, and I kind of have the sense that y'all are getting worse lag as a result. So I might have to drop the resolution back down a little bit, or the baud rate or whatever it is. All right, so I should see all of them right now, and then I should hit mine, and I should see only mine. Turns out the ID method does not exist, but thank you for suggesting it, the Electrolux. I thought it might exist too. It exists on the auth helper for sure, but apparently it doesn't exist here. So let's go back to request user ID. Let's see how it, no worries, not a problem at all. I was curious about the same thing. Okay, great. So look at this. If I say suggested resource here, suggested resource mine. So that the language suggested resource owner mine is wrong. So only show mine. Maybe that will make more sense. Only show mine or all. Yeah, I think that works. Cool. That was fun. All right, so what else did we do here? We added a custom filter to only show my suggested resources. All right, so we're building custom things. I was actually thinking about building a custom field as well, but we've only got 15 to 20 minutes. So Vince says I'd prefer the Boolean style. The thing is, if I'm reading this correctly, and I have not actually used the Boolean style, but the Boolean filters are checklists where you can have like more than one. So it's not as if it's like a checkbox. It's like a checkbox for the sake of having more than one of them. So I think I'd rather not do that. But I hear you on that one though, Vince. Okay, cool. So if you want to default to an option in filter, you can use a default function and return the value in filter. Oh, if you default, okay, yeah. But I think I want to default to the way it is right now. So, okay, so did we commit? I don't think we committed. I think I wrote it in Notion. All right, cool. So what do? We add a filter on suggested resources to only show mine. Great. All right, so with our remaining 15 to 20 minutes, we're going to start building a tool because that's what I said we were going to do at the beginning. All right, so I think it's Nova tool. Let's double check that tool is the thing that I want. Do we want a tool or we might want a resource tool? Uh-oh. Got to remember the difference between a resource tool and a tool. I think a resource tool shows up on the resource page, and that's not what we want. We want actually a unique page. Resource tools are played on a detail screen. That's not what we want. So we do want a tool. So a tool is basically just like a thing that shows up right here that does what you want. And what we're going to really build is just a very rudimentary version of this. And we may just find, man, this is just not worth it. But the idea, actually, it's possible that a better option is to create a dashboard card that just says, do you want to suggest a blah, blah, blah? Click here. Do you want to see yours? Click here. Instead of building an entire tool that really all it's going to do is just duplicate this thing right here. Yeah, maybe let's do that. Let's build a card for this dashboard that is for the public, that basically just does this sort of thing, but makes it really easy for them to create new resources and or for them to go to a list of already suggested resources. Sorry, promised we were going to build a tool, but we're really just going to do what makes sense. So that's going to be, we don't need a new dashboard, we need a new card that we're going to put in dashboard. So good night, Aris. Nova card, and this is going to be public suggested resource shortcuts. Maybe. Nope. Oh, gosh. Okay, so tools and cards and all these other things, you don't get to just make it simply like we did the filter. These ones, it's actually creating it as if it were a package. And these are the ones where things can get kind of hairy because it's treating it like a package, but often it's in your actual code, but not always. And sometimes there's discovery issues. This is the #1 complaint I've had with Nova. And the problem is I've told David, and he's like, great, why don't you show me the problem? And it's just kind of like, it just doesn't work the way I want, but I can never replicate it. So until I can't really hold it against Nova or David, but maybe we'll run into a problem here and then I can share it with him. So it's like this. Make Nova card, Titan Co. / suggested resource shortcuts. I'm going to do it like that. Okay. Oh, / wrong way. Would you like to install the card's npm dependencies? Sure. I need some. I need a soundboard so I can play the. You know what's funny is last time I wrote things to do later. Matt should have a snack before, and I totally didn't, and I'm feeling it again. But I've only got 12 minutes because this one was earlier, so it didn't bite me as much. The whole hangry. Building a card, not a tool. And then built a tool for suggested resource, not a tool, a card for suggested resource shortcuts. So we can place it on the dashboard for public users. All right. Compile the assets, sure. Would you update your composer packages? Sure. Why not? At least I'm getting hydrated now, huh? I need to do something interesting to keep you all entertained. There's a thing in my chat client that shows me how many people are watching at any given moment, and I very intentionally don't pay attention to it because I don't want to get really hyper obsessed in that. But I bet that you could kind of watch them go up and down as various interesting things happen. Yeah, this is an Apple Watch with the leather bracelet. Nomad. I'm trying to see how to show it to y'all. Nomad is amazing. They are expensive, I have to say about for them, but Nomad makes these really great watches where one of the things I don't like about the style of the Apple Watch is that it kind of feels like a blob on your wrist. And most bands make it look blobbier because the band doesn't really kind of shape in, it doesn't kind of merge into the watch. All these Nomad bands do that. They just go to I think it's hellonomad.com. They have little metal pieces that kind of come out of it that attach to it, so it makes the watch look more streamlined. I like them a lot. I have several of them. Okay, cool. So in theory, we're there. So let's go check out our composer.json to see what has changed. All right, so it added a path repository. So it's basically telling Composer, hey, when you look for this thing called suggested resource shortcuts right here, pull it from this path, which is in this repo. Thanks, Miguel. I don't know any magic tricks, Vince. So in theory, those two are enough. It's teaching us where to find it, and then it's requiring it. It's pulling in its star. And so then if you go Nova components, you'll now have this. And as you can see there, you've basically got like an entire component there that could be its own Composer package if you want. Okay, so let's go work on that. So we're going to get out of here. Nova service provider. I think this is where you put dashboard cards. Yep. So we're going to say new suggested resource shortcuts. And now let's go to our suggested resource shortcuts. So the definitions for these ones, don't peek it. The suggestions for these things are multiple pieces. Don't peek it. Go to it, please. What on earth is going on here? Okay. So it's, oh no, suggested resource shortcuts. Thank you. Okay. So all we're doing here is just basically it's saying here's a card and the card loads this view component, right? Everything else that actually defines this thing lives in the actual things here. So there's JavaScript for that component, and there's this thing right here says bind a view component named suggested resources shortcuts and serve it from component/card.view. So this right here is what's actually there. So the first thing we want to do is get building and everything like that to the point where this is actually being built. My gut tells me that the best way to do that is to go in here and actually be running npm install and npm run watch inside of that component. Npm install and npm run watch. All right, magic chips is my answer to how to entertain us. Yeah, I know, I'm just saying I don't know any. John, lurk in the background. Hey, thanks for lurking. Draman, package.json gets updated as well for future compiles, as I remember. So you're saying the root package.json gets updated? All right, so hit bang. I don't know if it did anything there. Let's go here and see if we actually see it. Oh, yep, cool. So we now have this thing and we make modifications to it. That npm run watch is modifying it. Great. So there we are going to do. So the simplest thing we can do, let's just do the absolute simplest possible way of doing it, and then we'll make it useful from there. Basically a link that says suggest a new resource. And then a link that says, what is the other thing I wanted to do? Like see my suggested resources. And I don't actually know if we can link to that since it's a filter, but we can at least say see all suggested resources. And of course, we're not going to make this ugly. We might come up with a nice little design, but it's, at its simplest, we're going to basically do this. So one of the questions we'll end up asking is this 1/3 big enough? We might end up deciding in here. Why does it keep, when I say go, what is it? Suggested resource shortcuts. I don't know why it's doing the peak every time. I think we can make this, yeah, there you go. We can make it be half. And then we'll now kind of get a little more space to work with. So obviously this is not what we want it to look like, but it'll have like some welcome text and stuff like that. Let's make it 2XL. Oop. And then, okay, text 80 means that it's light. I can't remember which direction it goes. There we go. I like this a little bit better. I don't like that this is centered, so we'll work on that. Justify center, item center. All right, so that's centering it in every direction. I kind of don't want to do that, so let's just do this. Okay, a little bit better. And then these need some line height, but I don't need to, well, I guess we could actually do this. Letting normal, is that what it is? Okay, cool. Good enough for now. Obviously, this is not the way we want things. Well, not obviously. This is not how I want it to look like in the end, but I'm just trying to get it so that we can at least get these links working and get something functional, and then we can make on making it a little bit easier and nicer to use. Hi, I'm using Nova 2. I'd love it. I'm currently using Nova for the CRUD operations and Vue for dashboards on the pages of Passport. Yeah, that's great. All right, so now let's make these links work. Last I remember, there was no easy way to automatically generate Nova friendly URLs, and you literally just need to type them in. So let's go actually type them in ourselves. And just grab this right here. Found this. You can apply a filter. I worked out. Is it possible to apply a filter when getting there getting a lens via the API? Right, but we're not doing lenses though, so I don't think that would do it. Oh, but then it's saying the URL you would pass is this. Okay, maybe we might do that. Seems a little hacky. I just realized that was not somewhere you could all see. Thanks for following, Mitchell344. All right, so we want this URL first, though. We can just drop these vias because there's no, we're not going to use them. So we're just going to come in here. Yeah, it might work. Good find. Again, this is not how this is all going to look in the end. Let's come in here. Suggest a new resource. Drop all that crap. Let's literally just kind of hard code it and just see how it treats us. Suggest new resource. Bam! All right, and then we'll drop C my suggested for now because we don't actually know how to do that. And then my guess is that you can do the exact same thing like that, and you'll see all suggested resources. You should probably put S on the end of resources. All right, sweet. So we now have a nice convenient, and that was so much easier than building a tool. Sorry to everybody, I promised we're going to build a tool, but wow, this is so much easier because now we can just make this look nice, right? And so we'll probably have like a little paragraph here that says something like, hey, public people, thanks for showing up. Main thing you can, obviously this is not the real writing, you can do is suggest resources for us to include. Thanks. Something like that. That's the main thing, and that does remind me of the fact that I don't know whether or not we want admins to see this. I have to go. Definitely give Node another try. Seems I tried too soon. Docked features not. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for hanging out, Electrolux. Oh, you know what? We're hitting the fact that the half-size card has a height limitation. So for now, I'm just going to do this, and we'll deal with that later. For the mind filter, maybe you can check some parameters and request and apply the mind filter with default function. Yeah, maybe. I'm not. Maybe. That's an interesting way to do it. For now, honestly, it's not that bad. You can just come here and just say only show mine. But that's an interesting. But yeah, this is the suggested resources filter, and then that hash. That was what Vince was linking to. So we could do that if we really wanted to. So let me actually pull that URL over into Chrome so you all can see it. This is what he's basically saying is, if this is your filter's payload right here, then you base64 encode that, and then you pass that in there. It's not, I guess it could be worse, but it's still a little sketchy to me. I think I'm okay right now just not linking to my suggested resources. Yeah, it's true. You could literally just go here, hit the filter. Okay, you know what? Maybe I'll do it. It's just this thing. Suggested resource filter equals nasty hash. Oh, it's so nasty though. I don't know. You know what? Let's not do it. In part because this is working fine, and the moment I add a third one here, we're gonna have to put some more content here. So for now, let's just call this. Okay, this getting started thing we don't need. So let's get rid of the help card on Nova Service Provider. And so imagine, you know, I think we also need like a welcome. We need a welcome for sure. Except we're about out of time. Let's make a real quick welcome. I wish. Well, you know what? Whatever. Who cares? I'm just nervous that if I make another card, it's going to take 10 minutes again. You know, I'm just going to reword this real quick and then actually expect that this is going to be good enough for now. Hey, friends. Thanks for... if you'd like to contribute to Onramp, you can suggest resources for us to include here. Okay, cool. Oh, except you can run, you can add a height class to card.view, but then if you have any other cards later, it breaks the way they all kind of lock in with each other, which I've done before. So, hey friends, if you'd like to contribute to Onramp, you can suggest resources for us to include here. Suggest a new resource. I suggest my resource. If I create it, it'll take me back to the suggest resource list page. Yeah, this feels good, actually. I like this. So, I think that's actually pretty cool. Actually, I think that's a pretty good end for our day. So what do we do? Oh, Markdown to? What did I call it? Shortcuts. All right. So what do we do today? Build a custom tool. Oh, I'm over the block limit for the free. Are you kidding me? What does that even mean? I think I might have used more individual pieces of content than I'm allowed to use. Notion. Well, might be using something other than Notion in the future. We'll see. But I guess I can't type anymore. Wow, that was unexpected. Okay, cool. Well, that's what we did. Can't type anything else. Basecamp has a free plan. Oh, I definitely don't want Basecamp. So one of the nice things about this is that when I'm building these, I can write in Markdown. I can generate from really easy templates, and I can link to each individual one publicly. Markdown's writing, I really don't really, or Basecamp's writing, I don't like their editor all that much. It's okay. But back for one last question. Is there a way in Nova to treat two database tables as one thing? Probably not, but I don't know for sure. But probably not, is my guess. Okay, that's it for today. So let's go right there. Thank you everybody for hanging out. I will be back Monday at, I believe that we're going to be back. Hold on, let me go double check on my calendar. But I believe we're back this coming Monday at 2:45 Eastern, live stream with Susanna. And then I will not be back next Friday because I'm going to be at home with my family for Thanksgiving and I don't have streaming abilities at home. So, and then we'll be back next Monday after that. So one last thing for those of y'all who've been tuning in around these, Onramp's been moving a little too slow for me. So I'm going to kind of set a set of tasks that we're doing on the streams and then do some of my own Onramp work on the side so that I can keep it moving. So, okay, cool. Well, thank you everybody for hanging out. Sorry, you are over there for me, but up here for me. So thank you for hanging out. I really enjoyed having you all come hang out with me. And if you watch it on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and all that so you can get the rest of them. See y'all.